Well guys, Ford just had a very big weekend. They just showed off an all-electric SUV that they have coming out next year. And I want to go ahead and talk about the details of this electric SUV they're coming out with. It's a Mustang branded electric vehicle. I wanted to go ahead and talk about the details. As you guys know, I own over 6 figures worth of Tesla stock. And so anytime anybody's going to try to come in Tesla space with an electric vehicle, I need to take it seriously. And I have to kind of put my biases aside and I have to look at this objectively. And this is very important. If you want to make a lot of money in the stock market over time, you have to be able to not just be a fan of something, of a stock, and have a lot of belief in it. You have to be able to step back sometimes and look at another company coming out with competing products and say, is this new product or service going to hurt my investment in any type of way or a major way specifically? And so that's exactly what we're about to get into in this video. We're going to look at all the details around this vehicle, and I'm going to try to tell you the good with this vehicle as well as the bad with this vehicle and how much of a competitive threat I believe it is versus the Tesla, which this vehicle here is going to be going straight against the Tesla Model Y, which Tesla's coming out with this upcoming year as well. So this is about to get very interesting. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you smash the thumbs up button. Let me know your opinion on everything we get into in this video down in that comment section. And just so you guys know, the pinned comment today will be to sign up for the email list for the insane Black Friday sale we're going to have on Black Friday around the Becoming Master Stock Market course that goes into everything I look for in a stock. That's going to be the pinned comment. So if you want to be the first one notified as soon as the sale drops on Black Friday, go ahead and sign up for that. It will be the pinned comment. All right, let's start getting into this, guys. So right off the top, it sounds dang exciting. Okay, Ford's Mustang Mach-E is an electric SUV with up to 300 miles of range, starting at $43,895 and coming in late 2020. We're talking about this vehicle is going to be coming very soon. We're talking about 2020. It's not like Ford put out a number like, oh yeah, we're going to come out with that in 2022, 2023, like way down the road. No, it's coming out this upcoming year. On top of that, very affordable price point for the masses. And we just heard something about 300 miles of range. So right off the top, this has me very intrigued, okay? Needless to say, all right? Now, if we look, the lowest end Model Y is going to start around $48,000. So meaning this new Ford Mustang, as far as its lowest end electric vehicle, will come under the price point of Tesla's Model Y. So that's very interesting from a standpoint of some consumers maybe, can't afford a $48,000 price point, but maybe 43 they can. So from that perspective, it's pretty interesting. So once I just saw the base around it, we're going to look more into the details here in just a minute. I got to see, what does this vehicle look like? Is it super ugly? We know most electric vehicles that have come out from the big players have been super ugly, and I've thought maybe they have a bias against electric vehicles. They don't want anybody to buy electric vehicles because they have been so ugly in the past, okay? And I gotta say, Ford did not make an ugly vehicle. I actually think it's a good looking vehicle. If you look at it from a front angle or the rear angle or just from the side in general, I actually believe this is a very good looking vehicle, which is important because this is what everybody has to walk up into, open the door and drive each and every day. And no one or most people out there don't want to buy an ugly electric vehicle. Let's just be completely honest. And that's one of the reasons no one has been a serious competitive threat against Tesla, because they've all pretty much made extremely ugly electric vehicles, along with a lot of them had range problems and things like that. But just the look of a lot of these electric vehicles has been horrible. So far, Ford has been won over in the respect of they created a good looking vehicle and they have some interesting stuff. But we got to look more at the details. We can't just look at headline stuff, okay? Let's start with that base price of just under $44,000 version of the Mustang Mach-E, which Ford has dubbed the Select model. The Select Mustang Mach-E will be offered in both rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive configurations when it ships in spring 2021, okay? They're talking about here. So needless to say, for that lowest end, we're going to have to wait at least a year and a half for that one, okay? And both versions use the same 75.7 kilowatt hour standard range battery pack Ford has designed for its new EV. The rear-wheel drive version will have a range of about 230 miles and around 255 horsepower, with the ability to go 0 to 60 in 6 or 7 seconds. So I saw that number and I said, what? 6 to 7 seconds? That does not sound very impressive, okay? We're talking about this is a Mustang branded, right? So we expect this vehicle to be fast, and the lowest end Model Y is supposed to be 0 to 60 in the 5s. So if we're talking about 6 to 7, I'm not necessarily saying that's a deal breaker for some folks, but gosh, a 6 or 7 versus, you know, a Model Y is going to be in the 5 for its lowest version. There's a pretty big difference between 0 to 60 in 5 seconds and 7 seconds. You can clearly feel it, okay? The all-wheel drive version will be about a second quicker at the expense of range. So if you want it to go faster, you are going to get less range, with an estimated 210 miles on a full battery. That's a pretty low number. When we start getting down to, you know, 210, we're talking pretty low. I mean, pretty much all the Teslas, you're looking at, you know, I think the lowest one is like 240 miles of range. So when you're talking about 210, now we're getting down there pretty low. Both can charge at rates of up to 115 kilowatts at DC fast charging stations, while the rest of the Mustang Mach-E variants will be able to charge at up to 150 kilowatts, which I can tell you, charging speed is very important whenever you're doing a lot of driving, you know, a long trip or something like that. You know, you just want the charge to happen as fast as possible. If you're at home and, you know, the vehicle's charging overnight while you sleep or something like that, it's not as important. But when you're driving a lot in a given day and you actually have to charge, like, charging speeds is actually very important, okay? All variants come with a home charger that can plug into 120 volts or 240 volt outlets. And as you guys know, 240 volts will charge at a much quicker speed than 120. Though Ford will sell a faster home charger, for which the company is partnering with Amazon Home Services to help with installation. So that's intriguing. The next level up is the premium Mustang Mach-E, which starts at $50,600 and starts shipping in late 2020. So now we're getting into the more expensive versions, and those will be the ones we'll likely see in 2020, okay? Customers can buy the premium Mustang Mach-E with a standard range battery pack, or pay more for a 98.8 kilowatt hour extended range pack. Each version can be optioned with rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, meaning there are 4 possible range estimates here. 210 miles for standard range with all-wheel drive, 230 miles for standard range with rear-wheel drive, 270 miles for extended range with all-wheel drive, and 300 miles with extended range with rear-wheel drive. And I gotta just say, when I just heard about all that, it caused a lot of confusion, because it's just like there's so many different variants. Like if you just look at the Model Y, if you want to buy a Model Y, you have 3 different options to pick from, okay? You can pick different paints and you can pick different, you know, interior colors and things like that. But at the end of the day, there are 3 options you can actually pick from in the Model Y. Tesla likes to keep it very simple, and honestly, I think usually with a product, especially a new product in the market, it's usually better to keep it simple. This is why, you know, Apple, for instance, you know, one of the reasons, in my opinion, the iPhone was so successful is they kept it super simple in the early days. It was like you got the whatever iPhone they had, the 4 at that time or something like that, right? And you had maybe like 2 different storage options and a couple different colors, and that was about it. It was a very simple process. And now that, you know, as so many people use iPhones and whatnot, they can expand into more storages, more designs, more different options and things like that, because people already know them well. But in the early days, a lot of times it's better to keep, you know, simple things simple instead of like all these different things that can, you know, can confuse a consumer overall, okay? Both all-wheel drive versions of the premium Mustang Mach-E are supposed to be able to get from 0 to 60 in about mid 5-second range. So now we're talking about, you know, on par with the base model of the Model Y there. While the rear-wheel drive versions sit around the mid 6s once again, okay? Not very impressive. Horsepower varies throughout 255 horsepower to 330 233 horsepower. Again, customers will be presented with the same basic trade-offs. Would you rather have a little more performance at the expense of range, or would you rather have a little more range at the expense of performance? And that's a trade-off some consumers are going to have to ask themselves if they're going to buy the Ford Mustang Mach-E electric version, okay? But wait, there's more. 3 more versions of the Mustang Mach-E, in fact, though they are a bit more straightforward than the select and premium models. The California Route 1 Mustang Mach-E will ship in early 2021. This one starts at $52,400 and only comes in rear-wheel drive configuration with the extended battery pack. Ford estimates that it will get about 300 miles of range. Now we're really talking 300 miles of range and deliver 282 horsepower. Not the most impressive horsepower number, but you do get a lot of range there, okay? The $59,900 first edition is a limited production initial run version of the Mustang Mach-E coming in late 2020 alongside the premium model. The first edition marries all-wheel drive with an extended range battery pack for 270 miles of range and 333 horsepower. It will come with a special first edition labels, brushed aluminum pedals, red brake calipers, and will be available in a bright blue paint job that Ford won't offer on most other versions of the Mustang Mach-E. And if that wasn't enough versions already, we have another one. Then there's the big kahuna, the Mustang Mach-E GT. This all-wheel drive only version of the vehicle starts at $60,500 and comes with a special GT badging and metallic looking front grille. It only squeezes about 250 miles out of the extended range battery pack, but that's because it's tuned for performance. In fact, while the other all-wheel drive versions of the Mustang Mach-E use different motors for the rear and the front axles, the GT uses a bigger electric motor on both, giving this version 459 total horsepower, allowing the GT Mustang Mach-E to take it from 0 to 60 in a little under 4 seconds. If that's not enough, a GT Performance trim will run just over 3 seconds. So holy smokes, guys, we have a lot of different versions there. I'm so dang confused. If you're also confused, make sure you smash the thumbs up button, because I'm just confused, man. There's a lot of different versions there of this vehicle, okay? Let's talk about trunk space and frunk space a little bit. There's a wealth of headroom and legroom, 29 cubic feet of storage space in the back, accessible via the hatch door, and 4.8 cubic feet of storage in the front trunk, where internal combustions usually live, obviously. The front trunk also has one of the neater touches they've seen in any car, but especially in electrics, okay? Ford says it can be used as a cooler. To that effect, it even has a small drain plug at the bottom of the storage space, which isn't lined with any fabric, and there are even 2 cup holders just inside the lip. So I gotta say, that's a pretty cool feature, Ford. You know, that's thinking outside the box. I mean, imagine you're tailgating or something like that, or you're going camping. That's definitely a pretty cool, you know, option to have out there. You can make that into a cooler. So good job on that, Ford, okay? If we take a peek in the interior, one thing I am seeing is, you know, a few things I'm seeing, okay? First is they're still using a lot of physical buttons, and this is something, you know, Tesla's trying to get away from using physical buttons. Like, you go in a Model 3, hardly any physical buttons in a Model 3, like hardly any. It's amazing how few little, you know, buttons there are, okay? So there's definitely still physical buttons. Another thing I noticed is, I gotta say, the screen, it looks small to me, okay? The screen looks small to me. And I'm not really comparing it necessarily to, like, obviously a Model X or a Model S screen, because those are just massive, beautiful screens. I'm comparing it really to like a Model 3 like I have. It just seems small. Maybe it is because it is like up and down screen instead of like a sideways screen, like landscape mode, like the Tesla Model 3s have. I'm not sure, but it does just kind of feel a little small to me in terms of the screen, which is very, very important with these vehicles. That's a big thing a lot of people look at, okay? And also, in regards to as far as using all those buttons, they're still using quite a few buttons. Back when Sandy Munro broke down the Model 3, one of the big things he talked about is that that car is actually a profitable car. And if you don't know, Sandy Munro, basically he has a company that all they do is they just just tear down vehicles. That's all they do. They just tear down vehicles and they sell those reports to other auto manufacturers. And what Sandy Munro found was he believes the Tesla Model 3 is solidly profitable. One of the main reasons for that is the fact that they just have everything you possibly want in that screen there. And the way they've done the chips is absolutely amazing. And rather than a ton of different parts, a ton of different pieces, going to a ton of different places that add up costs, Tesla's found a way to make it much easier, simpler process that is actually much more cost efficient when you're building a ton of these cars. And that's a huge thing for Tesla overall. Never mind, Tesla's doing some very interesting things around wiring in Model Y as far as using a very small amount of wiring compared to what is used in an average vehicle, which gets weight down and brings cost down. Okay, so Tesla's really clever about putting a lot of stuff into one thing. Now, a lot of people buy Mustangs because they love the sound, obviously, okay? Now, does it rival the sound of naturally aspired V8s? They say not even close, according to The Verge. But in a brief demo ride, they say they thought it sounded fun and unique, somewhere in between high-pitched wiring of most electric vehicles and a grumble of a sports car engine. Much like the Mustang's Mach-E solid front grille, it is bound to be a bit divisive. The Mustang's Mach-E engine noise can be switched off, and it also varies in volume depending on which mode you're driving in. Drivers won't, however, be allowed to disable a similar noise piped outside of the vehicle for pedestrian safety, something that's now required in the US and Europe. So basically, an electric vehicle can technically be like pretty much almost silent, but since obviously in parking lots and things like that, some people were not taught as children to look both ways, and so they just walk out, and believe me, I've seen this plenty of times, they just walk out and they're just do, and at least, if you can hear a vehicle coming, maybe you can see it coming or something like that, but some people, why can't people just look both ways before they cross the street? But anyways, it is going to have some sound features to excite some of those folks that maybe like that roar of the engine and the exhaust and things like that, okay? So let's break all this down now. As far as the good news, we're going to look at first. Then we're going to look at the bad news in relation to this electric SUV that Ford is coming out with here, okay? The good news first. There are 5 pieces of good news I found with this, okay? Number 1, compelling price point. It's under $45K. Very compelling price point. Good job Ford as far as, coming in and getting, the masses to be interested in a vehicle like this. You really got to come under $50K to get the masses to be interested in an SUV. If you're starting over $50K, you're kind of getting into the higher priced SUVs and you're competing in a different market, especially if you're getting a $60, $70, $80, $90,000 SUV. So good job with that. Also, you get a $7,500 tax credit for all these early buyers that will likely buy this vehicle in the first year or two. And the reason being is Ford really hasn't sold many electric vehicles at all. And so essentially, if you're in the US, you get a big tax break on this vehicle. Basically, Tesla sold so many electric vehicles now that the tax credit you get for if you were to buy a Tesla here today is I think it's like either $1,300 or $1,800. It is super low now because Tesla sold so many electric vehicles that they've kind of priced out of a lot of those, big tax credits that were out there. But Ford has not. $7,500 tax credit. So now you're essentially getting $7,500 off the purchase price on a long-term basis because you get that money back when you go ahead and do your taxes. So that is very interesting, okay? Number 3, I think the vehicle looks good. It's probably the first, mass market electric vehicle outside of Tesla that I think actually looks good. So good job by Ford. It has Mustang branded. So obviously it has Ford branding Mustang. Ford's a massive brand around the world, especially in the United States, but around the world. And Mustang is obviously a brand that tons of consumers love. They love their Mustangs. So I think just being Ford branded, Mustang branded is a net benefit in the respect of getting a lot of folks interested in this vehicle and bringing in even more attention to electric vehicles in general. And number 5, they have good battery life. I mean, the lowest was like 210, which is not that impressive, but there was none that looked like they were in the hundreds, which, when you start getting to the 100-mile battery range, you're starting to get so low end that a lot of consumers are turned off. You've got to really come in with a 200 or 300-mile range when you're talking about this type of price point. So they have good battery life from what we see there, okay? Now that's the good news around this. There is some bad news around this as well, and let's get into the bad news, okay? One is it's going to be sold through the dealer network, which one you think that might be a good thing, get through the dealers can sell it, people can walk on the lot, they got salespeople there and things like that. It's not really a good thing because dealers, a lot of dealerships, they make a lot of their money actually on service. So they don't really want to sell electric vehicles because there's going to be less service with these electric vehicles than with actually, you know, the ICE vehicles, let's put it that way, okay? And so a lot of dealers, as far as what are they incentivized to sell? An ICE vehicle over here or an electric vehicle over here? They're probably going to want to sell that ICE vehicle, and that's not a good thing when you're going to have probably a lot of the dealerships wanting to sell more ICE vehicles than these electric vehicles. So something that should be taken into account there. Second piece of bad news is there's no supercharger network in place, okay? I just took the Tesla on its first drive outside of Las Vegas, okay? I took it to California over this weekend, and I can tell you just going into that trip, and I got a 310 mile range Model 3 Performance version. Just going into that, I had some anxiety around, oh my gosh, I'm taking this out of here. What if I run out of battery? Are there enough superchargers on the way? All these sorts of things had kind of gone through my mind, because if you take a gas vehicle anywhere, you're never scared about that because there's a gas station in every corner, okay? Even if you're going on a long trip, there's so many gas stations everywhere. It's not even to be worried about, okay? But I can tell you on that trip, there were so many superchargers between Vegas and Los Angeles that it wasn't an issue at all. And I can just tell you, it was actually a pretty cool experience. I do wish the supercharging was faster. Many times it took between 45 minutes and an hour 15 when our batteries were pretty low to charge them back up. I think that process has to get even faster. But I will say, in terms of, you know, if you're going to buy, let's say a Tesla, or you're buying a Mustang or a Ford in general, or just any other competing product, you got to think, who's got the superchargers in place if I want to actually take this out of my city? Where you know, who has this? And Tesla has the supercharger network already in place. Ford, it doesn't. So you're not getting that same level of service if you're about to take this on a long trip where you're going to drive 200, 300, 400, maybe 500 miles in a given day. And that could cause a lot of problems and a lot of people to maybe say, nah, I don't want to buy this because I'm not even going to be able to take it out of my city. Maybe for everyday driving it's okay, but if I got to drive, you know, several hours, might not be ideal. Okay, something to take into account. Number 3, this vehicle has to ramp for Ford. There's been no other auto manufacturer around the world that has built and successfully ramped mass amounts of electric vehicles. I'm talking true electric vehicles that get 200 plus miles of range on this type of scale. GM hasn't done it, Ford hasn't done it, VW hasn't done it, BMW hasn't done it. None of the big players have ramped. Now, they've all successfully ramped ICE vehicles, and they might be able to successfully ramp, you know, electric vehicles in no problem at all. But I can tell you, building an electric vehicle and building an ICE vehicle are two different processes. And so I think if anybody thinks it's just going to be super easy to ramp in mass scale electric vehicles, it is not just that easy. It's like saying Tesla could just all of a sudden, you know, start creating ICE vehicles and they would be just be super successful at creating those and ramping those. No, they don't have any experience doing that. So Ford is going to have to go through likely some growing pains in the short term, meaning the first year or two, trying to ramp to mass vehicles because it is a different process. So we have to see how all that works out, okay? Number 4, they're going to have to compete directly with the Model Y, which obviously has a lot of consumer interest. It hasn't even been hyped out that much by Tesla, and it still has a lot of consumer interest, and that's going to be a tough vehicle to compete against because Tesla is known for creating electric vehicles. Ford is known for creating internal combustion engine vehicles. So there's going to have to be the question of, you know, basically gets into number 5. It's made by an ICE maker, okay? It's made by a company that creates internal combustion engines, and folks are going to have to say, do I want to spend $45,000, $50,000 on a vehicle that is made by a company that creates internal combustion engines rather than a company that has a decade of experience building electric vehicles? So that is a question that is going to have to go through people's mind, and they're going to have to decide, do I want the company that's proven they can do this, or do I want the company that's brand new to doing this? So they do have to ask themselves that question. And the last part of bad news is lack of autopilot. I didn't see anything in there about the car can drive itself. I mean, just the base model of autopilot can do 90% plus of the driving for you. Never mind if you're talking about the most advanced version, we're really getting up to 95% plus of the driving the computer can do itself. So that is another thing, because remember, we're shifting to electric vehicles, but we're also shifting to cars that can drive themselves. And when you're making those two big shifts at a time, it's really tough to compete with a company like Tesla. So I'm actually excited. I'm excited for this vehicle Ford has launched because I think it's going to bring even more attention to like electric vehicles in general. I think there was a big launch over the weekend, showed it off, got a lot of press. I think it's a very good thing, brings even more attention. But at the end of the day, if a consumer is going on their iPad, on their phone, or wherever, and they're about to make that purchase, they're about to do it, okay? They're going to have to ask themselves, do they want to buy a Tesla? Or do they want to buy a Ford or another vehicle? And I think when you talk about Tesla, the company has been proven they can successfully build electric vehicles, and the company that has a supercharger network in place, and a company that has vehicles that can do most of the driving for you if you don't feel like driving. I think when you factor in all those things, I think Tesla's a very, very hard company to compete with. Even though I'm really excited about this Ford product, I gotta say, when consumers are actually gonna make that purchase decision, I think it's gonna be really hard to purchase a Ford Mustang Mach-E versus a Tesla Model Y. I think that will be a tough decision that some consumers will have to go through there. So we'll have to see what this vehicle actually puts up for numbers. We should start to get some numbers in 2020 at some point, and then maybe a bigger context of the numbers in 2021 moving into 2022. So time will have to play out here. So, but needless to say, I'm excited about it overall. I think it brings more attention into the electric space, and it's just clear as day where the future is moving. It's moving all electric, and it's moving all autonomous driving. And the question is, who's going to be the big winner there? And obviously, you guys know where I have my chips played, okay? Once again, if you guys want to get in on that insane deal we're having on Black Friday for the Becoming Master Stock Market course that goes into everything I look for in stocks, make sure you check out the pinned comment. Get on that email list. We'll send you an email with the discount code as soon as it drops Black Friday. So you're definitely going to want to check out that, all right? Thank you for watching. Have a great day.